You know, I thought about trying to persuade my parents to take us to Atomic Blonde instead of seeing Valerian again, but then I remembered that there was that hardcore lesbian sex scene in the trailer for Atomic Blonde, and I imagined how awkward it would be to watch that with my mom.
Yeah, watching
For her birthday, no less.
watching sex scenes in movies with your parents is just it's a special kind of hell, and I can't put it in words. Like,
Yeah, it is.
there's just something so horrible about it.
Especially when it's a gay sex scene, and my mom who let's just say that told me about the health concerns of gay sex in a disturbing detail in a car ride, and I'm not even gay.
You know, I think all parents, like, whether they'll admit to it or not, are subtly worried that their kid is gay, so then try to have the, like, hey son, just letting you know, don't take it in the butt, you'll get AIDS. Alright, bye. And it's like, what? Why did you feel the need to tell me that?
So that's why I decided not to see Atomic Blonde this weekend. But I saw Valerian again instead, which is a pretty decent movie, but I wanted to see Atomic Blonde. Let's talk about Atomic Blonde. That was an okay transition, right?
Yeah, alright, yeah.
Yeah,
good.
so, I thought it was interesting, because I watched a New York Times video on YouTube called Anatomy of a Scene, Atomic Blonde, where the director David Leitch, who is also going to direct Deadpool 2, talks us through one of the action scenes. And amongst other things, he said that he wanted to do a lot of prop-based stuff in the action scenes, and because Charlize Theron does her own stunts in this movie, they can have a lot more steady shots and wide shots of her just doing stuff, because they don't have to hide her face, because it's not a stunt woman. So the big takeaway from that is that he said that he wanted to emulate a Jackie Chan fight scene, and I thought that'd be cool, because back when we recorded a couple of videos last week, we just watched a bunch of Jackie Chan fight scenes.
Yeah, we just sat around watching like a compilation of them on YouTube, and it was really fun just seeing all the different ways he did it. And I was even saying, like, you know, using the environment to his advantage, or the way he like kind of gets hurt, but like, you know, it humanizes him in the middle of the fight scenes. There's a lot of stuff that I feel like should absolutely be emulated in other things and aren't really.
And I think that Atomic Blonde is doing that, because if you look at the trailers, there's the scene where she's in the bathtub with all the bruises everywhere.
Yeah, like she actually looks like she's getting hurt, and she's not, you know, John Wick. Well, not John Wick. That's a bad example.
John Wick gets her.
Who's a character? There was one recently that really bugged me, who just gets put through like every kind of physical abuse, and is just like, I'm fine. Like
the one that really bugs me is Triss from Divergent.
I feel like Jason Bourne keeps falling off of really high places, and it never has any effect.
And Captain America, too.
Captain America, you can bullshit an argument because he's, like, strong enough to rip a car door off the side of a car.
The one that really bugged me was in Captain America 2, when he jumped out of the elevator, and then he was fine.
Well, he fell, like, 10 stories and landed on his shield, and I don't really know how
unless you have Wolverine's skeleton of adamantium, you're not just gonna walk that off.
Okay, well, I mean, there is an argument built in, and it's that vibranium, like, absorbs shock, so that's why it doesn't, like, blast him back super hard if someone, like, let's say, shoots the shield. Like, it doesn't, like, fling it up into his face from the force, like it absorbs it. Mm-hmm. So maybe it absorbed the force of him hitting the ground, but still, that would be pretty painful.
Yeah. But more to the point, I wanted to talk to Atomic Blonde because...
Talk to her?
Talk about Atomic Blonde,
gotcha.
Sorry. Because it's part of a trend that I'm seeing that's kind of cool, because it's... For example, it's a trend of what I think is called gun fu, like John Wick and stuff. David Leitch again. But the point is that, like, he said specifically that he wanted to emulate Jackie Chan fight scenes and that sort of, like, Hong Kong action cinema aesthetic. You know, like, the camera's a bit backwards and it's just all about the actor doing the stunts instead of, like, other forms of, like... Because that's an interesting trend, all these B action movies that are coming up, like... I wish Atomic Blonde the best, but it's a B action movie, let's be honest.
Yeah, let's be honest.
Lesbian.
Ah, you see what I did there?
I did.
Because in the movie, she wears a blonde wig. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or anyway. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I feel like John Wick kind of like kicked off like the return of a genre where it's just like, yeah, let's just do a random action movie where it's just people running around shooting each other and kung fu kicking each other out windows.
Here's the thing, it never really went away, but the genre is changing. Because, like, in the mid-2000s, it was Taken, and it was The Transporter, and it's that sort of, like, slick Euro-themed action thriller, which is more like the quick cuts and this sort of smooth cinematography and all that stuff, like that Euro aesthetic that was popular in the 2000s. And to be fair, there are some movies that it looked really good in, like The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
It's not a B action movie, but it's got that same Euro look to it.
It's a B crazy sci-fi movie.
Exactly.
Kind of like Valerian.
Yeah, Valerian's B. I'd have to honestly, with the most love that I could give to Valerian, it's B.
Yeah. You know, I feel like in general we're just like seeing a trend in movies lately where it's just a lot of influence from Europe is just kind of seeping in finally, and it's not finally. It's been a thing for a while now, but it just seems more prominent now than it's been in a while.
Mm-hmm. Although I'm also saying that this Hong Kong action aesthetic is also finally coming to America because, like, yes, there was The Matrix, which took a lot of inspiration from, like, the Wire Fu movies. But
yeah.
That was a bit of a... People weren't homaging the Wire and the Kung Fu in The Matrix. They were homaging the CG effects, the part that, ironically enough, has dated the least well.
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
It's
that's
coming
the part
back.
that hasn't aged at all. Well, I mean,
it hasn't aged very well.
It hasn't aged well, I mean.
Like the spinning shot of the girl with her legs tucked up. That looks terrible. It's so cheesy.
I mean, it was probably super cool at the moment, but now it's just silly looking. And that's also partially because so many movies tried to parody it.
Even Shrek did it.
I feel like one of the Scary Movie films did it.
I don't watch those.
I felt like they had some merit as genuine comedy movies for like the first two, maybe 2.5, and then by the time we got to Scary Movie 5, I just wanted to slit my wrists. Don't watch those, kids.
So now it's kind of cool because we're getting like what I'm gonna call pop punk action movies, like John Wick 2, Atomic Blonde. They're taking inspiration from the Hong Kong action movies with the stunts and the practical effects and the real action, but they're also adding this sort of like neon aesthetic to it and pop punk, all the 80s retro stuff. Like, for example, Atomic Blonde is set in the 80s and has an 80s soundtrack. So they're adding that sort of like pop punk neon gloss to the Hong Kong action movie aesthetic, and I think that's kind of cool.
Are Health doing any more of the songs for the movie?
I have no idea.
I sure hope so. I really love Health. They're one of my favorites. That Max Payne soundtrack, so goddamn good. And there's their album Get Color, which was amazing. You know,
Health band. Is it a band?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they got rid of their drummer recently, which is sad because he was like
American
the best
noise rock. Cool.
Are you looking them up right now?
I'm looking them up. Musical style, artfully crafted noise and raw synth.
Yeah, I've actually showed it to a couple of different people, and they can never really tell me what genre it is.
Wikipedia says that it's noise rock. Experimental rock that spun off from the punk rock in the 1980s, drawing from no-wave, minimalism, industrial music, and New York hardcore. Extreme distortion through electric guitars and less frequently electronic instrumentation. So it's like a spin-off of like punk rock, punk and 80s new wave.
Yeah, I could get that.
That's fun. So yeah, what do you have to say about this sort of trend? Because I think you're into it a lot more than I am.
For movies?
Just movies, anything.
I don't know. I feel like I'm down for just seeing anything that's written well. I don't really necessarily go just because of a certain style of film. Granted, I end up being most attracted to superhero films just because I'm so familiar with the source material, but I mean, stuff like Valerian, which I haven't read the comic for, or John Wick,
it's so bizarre to have something where I've read the comic book that you haven't.
Yeah, that's a very strange scenario. I wasn't expecting that. But
I really drank the Kool-Aid on Valerian.
I mean, it's not bad. I don't know why everyone hates it so much. I thought it was fine. Granted, it had flaws, but that's movies. That's everything. That's life. Things have flaws. Even if you super love something, you can still point out its flaws.
You have flaws.
I mean, that's why my Spider-Man Web of Shadows review, everyone didn't get that I love that game just because I pointed out the things that are both wrong with it and great about it. I wanted to be even about it, so I talked about both. And everyone thinks if you acknowledge a flaw in something, you must hate it. No.
I love it. Can I just say that I identify with that so much because I like to talk about movies with my family, and they kind of get sick of me doing it because they think that I hate everything just because I talk about the flaws.
I think that's part of being a good reviewer is that you're not biased to the point of ignoring the faults in something just because you like it.
Well, my point is that there's more to talk about with the flaws than it just success. If you're just talking about how great a movie is endlessly, it's just kind of boring.
Yeah,
there's nothing to balance it out.
I mean, even my most positive reviews, I can't sometimes... my Spawn review. I feel like the majority of that I'm just kind of praising the cartoon. I don't know, I feel like that's not one of my better reviews. I mean, it's okay. I like it.
It's not one of your better viewed reviews.
That's true. I know for sure the one that I really was not fond of in the end is my Splatterhouse review because I just kind of talk up that game a lot. And because I love that game. It's really great. There's not a whole lot to complain about it with other than that it just gets kind of repetitive after a while, but that's video games.
All video games get repetitive.
It's also harder to make a review funny when you're just praising something over and over,
Well, I don't have that problem because I can't make anything funny.
Oh. What you just said just now was funny. There was some random audience member who laughed at that, who's listening right now. His name's probably, It's probably a guy named Ryan listening to that. Hey, Ryan, what's up? Or there's also a guy named
Steve.
Maybe somewhere in there. I don't know.
Nah, he's not watching.
Steve doesn't like us anymore after we said we liked Alien Covenant.
You said that you like it. I said that I liked elements of it.
Well, regardless, we both partially praised it.
Partially praising. That's the best. Yeah. So, basically my point with the whole Hong Kong action thing is that I'm saying, it's kind of, a lot of people talk about how the Asian influence is bad, and, like Chinese people only see terrible movies like Fast and the Furious and stuff. But you know what? Maybe we can learn something from them every now and then, and maybe we'll get some cool stuff from that.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really. I mean, I know that they are the biggest supporters of a lot of the worst movie franchises. Like,
Fast and the Furious, Transformers.
like they don't necessarily go for story. They just kind of go for eye candy. And
Well, I forgive them because like they've been under the communist regime for a long time, so like we have been in our culture, we have been exposed to movies for the better part of a century. They haven't.
yeah,
Well, they have.
there's probably some nice escapism.
It's been heavily controlled by their government.
Even now,
So
as like lax as it is comparatively to the way it was, it's still kind of.
Yeah, it's censored all the time, and even when it isn't censored, there's a block out for only Chinese films to be in at a certain time. So I think that their tastes are maturing and developing, and we can give them some time for that to change. And plus, there's just different cultural expectations.
And
maybe,
I
maybe they just
understand
look
like
at movies differently than we do.
yeah. Well, I also understand like the idea of like not every country is as crazy as America is. I think we're the only one that spends as much as we do on movies. Like the sheer excess of money just spent to make a movie look good. No one else really does that. So
Like,
it's probably
there's also
nice to see these kinds of effects. Like I'm sure, like Transformers and Fast and Furious, all this super expensive, dumb stuff looks awesome because they don't have that kind of stuff in their own cinema.
You just love 9/11.
I do. Which Bush did.
You heard it here first, folks. David did 9/11.
What?
Confirmed.
What?
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 What? Okay, so my microphone glitched out for a bit, but we got restarted.
So yeah,
Have fun.
I think that's
that.
all we can. I think that's all I can say about that. There was something else I wanted to talk about, but in the meantime, is there anything you want to talk about?
I mean, just same old, same old. I'm currently playing the 2003 Hulk video game. Guess
Is
you
it
could
bad?
call it research. It's actually kind
Pretty
of solid.
bad.
Well, the movie was like the hot garbage because it was like this art house, like indie movie sort of thing featuring the Hulk, where like he spends 90% of it just like being depressed about his dead parents, and everything's super downplayed.
Isn't Nick Nolte in it?
Yeah, Nick Nolte's his crazy dad who bites a wire and goes while getting electrocuted and then turns into Absorbing Man.
That's nothing new for him.
That's probably how he got that way. Just biting into copper wire and just, yeah.
It's just something he does every week normally.
Yeah. So this game, I mean, it's not the best, and the one that came after it was vividly better.
Betterly
But-
worse.
What?
Betterly worse.
Yeah. But this one's. Why do you always gotta neg, man? Why you gotta be like that? No, okay.
Because
So
I have
there's
to. Because it's
the
my
2003 game, which came out based on the movie and was surprisingly not complete garbage. I mean, I'm still playing it. I'm about like 5 missions into it. Seems solid so far.
Pardon me.
That's fun.
Cool.
Wait, what? I'm doing this hacking mini game right now, just because this.
Is
game
it better than
called
the
out.
hacking mini game in BioShock?
Yes. Stupid pipe mini game that you could put that on a phone, and someone would just buy that as its own game. That stupid pipe thing.
I hate the pipe thing.
Because it was so tedious. Like, it took so long. I would spend so long on those that I would forget what I was even doing in the first place, like what I was trying to hack. And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm at a door. Is that what I was trying to open? Oh my god! I just spent like the last 10 minutes just connecting and disconnecting
Wow.
tubes."
So speaking of video games, I had a thought about Ready Player One that I wanted to talk about, if you don't mind.
Okay, if I can throw in a quick thought about this game,
Go ahead.
it's actually kind of cool that they have segments where you play as Bruce Banner.
Ooh.
Just because that's such a strange concept. Like they've never really done that before
Yeah.
or since.
Like,
Like,
I think there's a scene in the trailer for Thor 3 where you see Bruce Banner like piloting a ship and shooting at some enemies, and I think that's kind of cool.
yeah, because he never gets to do anything. Like, I bet Mark Ruffalo shows up on the set and then it's like he does like 3 scenes, and then the rest is just them
Mocap.
getting Lou Ferrigno to dub him.
And then, of course, I love how they actually give Hulk lines that aren't Smash.
Oh yeah, the Hulk was able to talk since like the 70s at least. Everyone's acting like this is a new thing. Like, oh my god, the Hulk can speak in sentences. What the fuck is this?
Well, I think it's
like
cool that
read
they're
any
finally
comic book, guys.
doing it on the silver screen. And I think that Thor 3 is going to be really good because of Taika Waititi. I feel like he's going to knock it out of the park.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Marvel has this thing of getting in like super talented directors and then telling them to downplay all of their respective skills a lot. You know, like don't don't let everyone know that this is clearly not a Marvel. Like, make sure it looks exactly like the rest of them.
Controversial opinion here, but John Watts was wasn't a very good director on Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think that movie was very indifferently directed.
I think so too. I think the strength was in the performances and the writing, which is a little
I mean,
shocking
if he worked,
considering how many screenwriters there
if he
were on
worked
that
on the performance, if he worked with the actors on the performance, then he did a good job directing the actors. But in terms of all the other jobs of a director, aesthetic, special effects, all of that, it's just kind of meh.
Yeah, just kind of
Eh.
we got to do it. So
But my point with Ready Player One is that if you watch the trailer, then the VR sequences, the sequences within the Oasis game, they look like a Blur Studios animation. Do you know who Blur Studios is?
yeah, there's the guys that did that Arkham Origins fight scene.
They did the Deadpool test footage.
They
Tim
did
Miller
all the
went
effects
off.
for Deadpool.
Tim Miller is the co-founder of Blur Studios, and he went off to direct Deadpool. And
Good for him.
They're very boutique animated animations that specialize in true to life animations. So they often do video game cinematics, like the opening for Batman Arkham
Origins. They did this fight scene.
No,
with
it was
Deathstroke.
Arkham Knight. And then they also did the intro to the DC Universe Online, which was really cool.
That really long, like, it was like a short film where it was like the superheroes in 10 years after they're a little bit more aged and like everyone looks
Their
different.
last stand.
Yeah, like Green Lantern for some reason has like a green energy cast around his arm to hold it together, or like Lex Luthor is a crazy giant cyborg, and
it was really cool. So
yeah.
my point, and the post production for Ready Player One has been so long that Steven Spielberg has directed another movie in the meantime called The Papers, starring Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. It will come out before Ready Player One.
Because they're spending so much time rendering effects for it.
To be fair, it looks good. But here's my question. Does it look too good?
Yes.
Because it looks like a video game cinematic. But the point
It doesn't look like gameplay.
of the VR sequences is that it's gameplay, but it looks too polished. It looks too good to be real. Like, even when you're playing a game on the PS4 or these new video games, there's things go wrong, and it doesn't have the same sort of sheen to it. It's not always perfect. And it looks always perfect in the video game, and that brings me out of the story, to be honest, because I don't believe this is actually a video game thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the argument is that it's in the future, graphics will look great by then, and it's like, well, I mean, I don't know, that's debatable. I think we've kind of hit a wall in terms of video game graphics. They've been pretty consistently good for the past few years. I mean, maybe you just throw in, like, something to, like, prove it's a video game, like some frame rate issues.
And also...
Because that would be funny for the gamers in the audience.
Yeah.
They would get that. They would laugh at that.
And the other thing that bugs me is the camera angles. Like, in the VR sequences, it's a third-person camera point of view. But wouldn't it be more interesting to do, like, a first-person VR thing? But that would be...
I thought the implication was that it's in first person, but we're seeing it, like, from a different perspective, as dumb as that is.
That's really dumb, because it's inside the game. I would do the experimental art house thing, and I would do a VR game from the point of view.
So you'd film it like Hardcore Henry, except like have all these crazy like
Hardcore Henry, except digitally and animated in VR.
And then have like, because really the only like actual thing that would be on screen would be like other human actors and like the main character's hands. Like you could do almost all of it on a green screen.
And also, I don't buy that the effects look this consistently good with no glitches, because according to the timeline in this video game, it everybody's playing it basically. Given that basically everybody in the world is playing this one video game, how are there no frame rate issues and stutters and errors? How does it look completely perfect all the time?
Yeah,
it's the post-apocalyptic future. It's not like they're gonna have all... Well, it's not post-apocalyptic. It's just dystopian. It's the dystopian future. I don't believe that the dystopian future is just a bunch of server farms.
I would settle for it to look a little Spy Kids 3-ish in some spots.
Yeah, but intentional.
Like intentionally. Like that would be a fun nod to the audience. Like, yeah, video games aren't perfect. Like it would just help with immersion. I mean it's a minor complaint, but I feel like it's one of the things that matters.
Especially when it's not a video game movie, but it's a movie about video games.
Hey, guess what I just did?
I don't care.
I beat this hacking minigame in this Hulk game.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it since maybe about the time we started talking about Atomic Blonde.
Good for you.
That's how fucking long it took. The hacking minigame is super hard. And I don't get mad at video games. I just keep playing them until I get it, and that could take a very long time.
You're a weirdo.
You're a weirdo.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you.
No, you. You. And by the way, there's a cool guy on Twitter who's animating. I think we've talked about it before, but he's animating videos for us currently. One of them is Spider-Man 3, but good.
That one's fun. I can't wait to see that. You showed me little bits of it, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, he did a great job with it. I'm really excited to see the rest of it. I think he's working on more of it after he gets done going to a convention this weekend. But that'll be fun. Nerds.
Yeah,
big nerds.
Like me.
Yeah.
Not
this
you,
stuff
though.
will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaur like me. Holy shit! I just got killed, and now I'm on the checkpoint. Put me back before the minigame that I've been doing for 20 minutes. Gotta go hack that stupid computer again. Oh boy!
Can't wait for you to do it again. So yeah,
Fuck!
the other example that I can think of in this sort of like this sort of like too good visual effects thing was Ender's Game, where the visual effects actively undermined the story. Because the thing is, like, the climax of the book is where there's a simulation where, like, Ender is being trained to be the captain of the Earth forces to defeat the aliens, and he's been training and training and training, and he thinks that these are simulations, but and then comes the final battle where he blows up a planet in the simulation, and then the twist is all this time he wasn't in a simulation, he was actually fighting the war through this communications device through space. And
Neat.
it was a really
So
cool
like
twist.
there's a spot where he like sacrifices several ships
And
filled
he
with
blows
people.
up the aliens' planet.
Yeah, so he in the end this small child killed something like a couple billion folks all
And he
in
killed
one,
an entire race of aliens, and they call
all in
him
like
the
a
Xenocide.
20-minute battle.
Yeah. And then
What
he's
a
like,
badass.
oh crap, I didn't want to kill everybody.
I didn't want to kill everyone.
But the movie undermined this twist because the special effects in the simulation sequences were photorealistic. So it's not that much of a stretch for the audience to think, maybe this is real, because it looks really real.
Well, that's why I was really disappointed when I called that twist, like, immediately. Like, as soon as they're like, alright, you ready? And you could see, like, the fancy looking special effects and how, like, dramatic and over the top and elongated the sequence was.
And
I was
the
like,
music was dramatic, too.
they would not be putting this much focus on this one random test sequence unless he was actually killing tons of people right now.
And that was the problem, is that they made the twist too obvious because the special effects were too realistic. Imagine if it was like 8-bit effects or
Yes,
something.
I did it! Sorry.
Or imagine
I did.
if like all the ships were just like little arrows or something. That would have made it a lot more interesting
Like,
because it wouldn't have been
well,
obvious.
would it? Okay, I would be down for it if it was just like, if it looked photorealistic but partially glitchy, like it wasn't perfect in terms of effect.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just a little glitchy, a little like some of the textures didn't look great, or sometimes like character models wouldn't look exactly like what they were in
Or
order
like
to
if a ship, once it's destroyed, just disappears.
yeah, right? Like or like it makes like a cartoony sound effect, like instead of looking like he's staring through a window watching shit explode, like maybe pull it back and make it a little bit more like a video game, because I mean,
Or
when was
maybe
that
when he
book
zooms
written?
up on the texture of the planet, it looks like kind of fake.
It looks cheesy and like it looks like a Google Maps rendition of Earth,
Yeah.
where it's like, fucking A. Okay, I'm
And that's
gonna
the
die
point,
again.
is that
I hate this level.
I think that we're coming to the point where special effects are too good. Like, for every movie like Avatar, War for the Planet of the Apes, even Valerian, or all of these movies where the special effects are part of the story, where you think that Andy Serkis is playing an ape, where it works for the story, there's something where it doesn't because it's too realistic.
I died again, so I have to go do the hacking.
Or there's another thing that kind of breaks my suspension of disbelief sometimes, is when like they'll have future technology, but it looks too sort of like Apple-y sort of thing, where you'll have the transparent touchscreen panels and stuff, and you think, really?
I'm gonna give this game a bad review after what just happened.
So what do you think? What do you think? Can you think of an example where the special effects were too good?
Special effects were too good. I feel like it's only in cases where they're trying to simulate video game shit, and that's a very small segment of movies.
I mean, Ender's Game was basically about a video game at the end, but that's not
You know,
all of
it's
it.
weird. I can't remember when that book was written. I'm sure it was a
It was
lot.
the 80s.
It was before video games had all these
He predicted it.
hyper-realistic...
He also
Yeah,
predicted the internet.
that's true. A couple people did that. But, it bothers me that, it was written in a time before video games were even, considered a thing, and then the filmmakers didn't, try to adapt it in that way and, be like, yeah, we could just incorporate real-world video game stuff in it to make it more realistic. They just said, all right, so the simulation looks exactly how it would look in real life. It's perfect. It's like being in the Matrix. You can't even tell the difference.
That's another
It
example
seemed
where
like
this...
such an easy decision, but they just kind of just eh. And again, it's one of those minor nitpicks, but I still feel like it's one of those things that people don't ever really think about.
Mm-hmm. I think that The Matrix is another example where the special effects were too good. Because, if it's a giant simulation where everybody's plugged in, wouldn't there be instances where it breaks out or there's an error?
Well, the point of it is to make you question if the world you live in is real, monotonous everyday life. Could that be some other thing? Scientists have theorized that we currently are living in a simulation. You don't exactly have any way to prove it, but they theorized it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in that case where it's you can't tell the difference between reality and the simulation,
Mm-hmm.
it's effective because it's disorienting in that you're like, what's real? I don't know what to think,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it works to its benefit there, but in a different thing like Ender's Game or Ready Player One,
where it's all about
super
how it is
aware that
fantasy.
it's where it's super aware that it's a fantasy. It could help,
Yeah.
Yeah, this Hulk game is. Who would have thought that the most annoying part of this Hulk game would be hacking computers? When someone pitches Hulk video game, would you picture a guy standing at a laptop trying to hack in?
I also have a bit of a pet peeve that I'd like to make that's not related to anything. I think the It movie looks terrible.
Yeah, they left out that orgy scene in the sewer. I mean, why you leave out all the most important parts of the source material, guys?
Am I the only person who thinks that the It movie looks awful?
I don't know.
It's cheap jump scares, haha, clowns are scary, blah blah blah. It just looks boring.
I don't know. I've been kind of avoiding the trailers because it was one of those things where I'm like, I'll probably just not watch it.
I won't watch it anyway, but it's just kind of funny to see everybody seems to like this. Everybody seems to be excited for the It movie, but I'm just not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Also, I didn't grow up with the miniseries with Tim Curry, so I don't have that those nostalgia goggles.
I mean, I know people.
A lot
what
of
bugs
people...
me is that everyone's like, but they already made a movie about it. It's like, no, they did not. It was a miniseries on TV. You probably didn't even watch it, you asshole.
I think that a lot of people have nostalgia goggles for Tim Curry in that miniseries.
Was he ever scary in that? At any point?
He was scary if you were 10 years old.
Yeah, if you're a little kid, the scary clown. But when you're 20, it's just
people.
No.
It's like how people are with Star Wars. My parents are old, so they saw Star Wars when it first came out in 1977. They were teenagers, so they have those nostalgia goggles for Star Wars, and they just don't think about it critically the way you and I do, because they were part of that phenomenon and they just don't think about it through that critical lens. For example, there will always be a special place in my heart for the Avengers because I'd never seen anything like it. But I'll look at it critically, but with these nostalgic movies like Star Wars and the miniseries for It, people give them a pass because they remember it to be better than it actually is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's partially there's two sides to it. There's it genuinely doesn't look good, and there's everyone's shitting on it because it's not what they remember from 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of annoying because those are two very different things.
But with the It movie, it's, oh, I remember the old one for being good. Oh, the new one looks good. Oh, cool.
I feel like all I've seen is negative press about it. I feel like no one's excited for the new It movie.
No, I've seen a lot of excitement for it. It the first trailer broke records. It is the most viewed trailer ever.
What was the one? I thought the one before that was Star Wars.
No, it was like, no, Star Wars, and then 50 Shades of Grey, and then Beauty and the Beast, and then It.
Wow. That's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
It's It, actually, now. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if it still holds the record, but it did break the record for a long time. And although my favorite thing is the crappy It trailer, but it's Cat in the Hat.
Oh, I haven't seen that, but I can already picture it in my head.
It's hilarious. Yeah, like, um, like there's trailers like Tim Curry was great, but this looks good. Um, Tim Curry was great, but this looks good, sort of thing, on like the
Yeah.
comments for the YouTube videos. But here's the thing: is that the only thing that people talk about with the old It miniseries is Tim Curry. Tim Curry, Tim Curry, Tim Curry, Tim Curry, Tim Curry, Tim Curry. Maybe the rest of it wasn't that good.
Well, remember when he turns into a giant spider at the end?
And my problem with this is that it's a serious horror movie with good cinematography, good child actors, and everything. But they still think that balloons are scary.
Well,
oh no, he's holding a bunch of balloons! Ah, I'm so
hold on, I have a question. Are they going to do this movie as like two parts, like the miniseries?
Yeah,
they're gonna do it again.
They're gonna
like
do
the rest
two
of it
movies.
as adults.
The first movie is the kids. The second movie is going to be the adults.
All right, so they're going the same plot format as the miniseries, I guess, just more expensive. You know what would be great is if they just said fuck it and then just like changed the ending of the second one and then just made it a trilogy and then came up with a whole third set of events. Where it's like them as a bunch of grandparents getting chased around by the clown.
Make it a trilogy.
Yeah, and they're like, son, I gotta tell you about the 1990s in Maine when I was getting chased around by this clown. It traumatized the fuck out of me.
It actually looks like it's going to be a period piece, like it's going to be set in like the 70s or the 80s or something in the kids section.
Huh. So what do you think about them? Because maybe it's just we go to different places, but I remember reading a whole bunch of comments about how everyone was really angry that it, wasn't Tim Curry.
Well, I think that at first they were angry about it, but then they got over it.
I also remember people being really mad that they were changing the source material again and leaving out that weird orgy scene. Like, I feel like there's no reason.
Weirdos. That's not.
I feel like there's no reason for that to be. You know, this reminds me of a really unpleasant conversation that I had on Twitter the other day with that guy Roman Marley. Is because he said, he posted like a GIF of someone like rolling their eyes, and the caption was, when someone says just because the source material did this doesn't mean ... And I said, well, sometimes source material can have garbage things in it. You don't have to adapt it point for point every time.
Yeah.
You know? And then we got into like this giant argument where I was like, well, what about like silly stuff in like Spider-Man, like Sins Past?
I know that I was waiting for the episode of Star Trek to be turned into a movie with Lwaxana Troy constantly agonizing about Deanna Troy not getting married. I know that's what we all wanted to adapt Star Trek to the silver screen with.
Okay, well, anyway, what I was saying is that, I was like, well, what about like Sins Past? Okay. Sins Past on like Spider-Man, it's like that was a dumb story and it was a weird retcon and you can leave that out. Or One More Day, like, there's stuff in source material that's inherently bad. And he said, well, those are individual stories that are bad. Don't adapt those. And I was like, no, I consider it all one big story, and these are parts of it. And then we got into kind of like this argument about semantics, and then, without really addressing any of my points, he just kind of started calling me a moron over and over. And it was really sad because that guy, Roman Marley, he has a somewhat big following on YouTube, but I mean, I've seen a couple of his tweets, and he seems kind of funny. And a lot of people have even suggested that I like collaborate with him at some point. And just like it sucks that our first real interaction on Twitter or at all was like us trying to have a conversation about something, and without really like actually like addressing anything I said or discussing it, he just immediately started being rude. And I said, well, what's the point of like just calling someone a moron if they disagree with you, and then arguing semantics with them? And he said, well, I get angry when someone misrepresents my points. And I said, I didn't misrepresent. I just gave a different point of view, and you hated it. Like, I think that was really silly and childish, and I'm kind of upset.
Can I also have a bit of a rant
I thought
about
that
Twitter?
guy was cool.
Can I also have a rant about stuff that happened on Twitter?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so if you're on Twitter, then you remember the post that I made a couple of, like, maybe sometime last week, where I said, like, Spider-Man Homecoming didn't need great power, great responsibility because we saw it in other movies, and I said that that's dumb. But I've gotten a lot of dumb responses, and if you hear your response, then I'm not saying you're dumb, I'm just saying that maybe you're kind of misrepresenting what I said. Like, there's a person who said, like, great responsibility isn't the only thing that makes Peter a hero. Spidey doesn't need a phrase to be a hero. Homecoming showed it without the phrase "actions speak louder than words." It's like that's kind of dumb. I'm not saying.
I think the confusion, and it's not that they're misrepresenting what you said. Their point is valid. I think they think that
I'm not
great
saying
power,
that we
great
need
responsibility.
To say.
I think they think that you mean that the phrase is more important.
I'm not saying that we should say great power, great responsibility. It's just that that's a really concise way of summing up why Peter Parker became Spider-Man. And what I'm saying is that Spider-Man Homecoming never explained why Peter Parker became Spider-Man. Now, we had that really weak sauce monologue in Civil War, but there was so much other stuff in that movie that it didn't really serve as an introduction to the character. And the opening scene of Spider-Man Homecoming is Peter going, "Oh, this is so cool, the Avengers, this is so cool, I love the Avengers because they're cool." So then, for the entire movie, I was furious at Peter because I just thought that he wanted to be Spider-Man and to be a member of the Avengers because it was cool. And that's a really shallow version of the character. Because
what the confusion was for people is that they think that by the saying leaving out the great power, great responsibility bit, they thought you meant only that, when it was really the entire Uncle Ben plot in general.
I don't,
without acknowledging it. Like, you don't have to show it, just acknowledge that it happened.
Here's the thing, is that, like, you don't need to show Uncle Ben's death. In fact, I think that, like, even Batman vs. Superman would have been better off without showing us the death of the Waynes again.
The Waynes have died, like, 6 times now on screen.
Mm-hmm. But my point is that they left out the origin of Peter Parker. They left out the why of why he became Spider-Man and decided to help people. And that's important. Because if Batman's parents died of cancer instead of being killed by criminals, he's just a crazy lunatic who goes into the city and punches people. He's a psychopathic weirdo.
He's a rich white man who dresses up as his least favorite animal and goes out and beats up homeless people.
Exactly. He's the bad guy. But if we give him this backstory, then maybe we can understand why he's doing what he's doing and maybe empathize with him a little bit. And that's what makes him such a great character, is that yeah, he does all these weird stuff, but he's got a reason for it. And it's the same with Peter Parker. Like, he screws up his life so much in Spider-Man Homecoming, and I never understood why. Why does he insist on going to stop the criminals instead of going to the academic science bowl? I mean, you're screwing up your future just because you think the Avengers are cool. And I
Yeah.
thought he was such a shallow character because of that. Because I'm not going to operate on what any other Spider-Man movie said. Because you said, no, 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 those movies don't matter. This is the real version of Peter Parker. This is Peter Parker as he's supposed to be. Okay, so he just thinks that Spider-Man is cool and the Avengers are cool?
Well,
I hate
okay, I
Peter
mean,
Parker. If that's what
okay,
he is. But he's not.
yeah.
And you need, and what I'm saying is that you just needed to explain why, and you need Uncle Ben. Here, like, let me pitch it. Here's what I would have
Okay,
done.
hold on. Let me give what I would have done because it's fairly simple.
Okay, what would
You
you have
just
done?
this is spoilers for Homecoming, but everyone's seen it by now if you're one of my subscribers.
Yeah.
When Vulture is about to blow himself up over his hubris because he is that selfish and that confident in his ability to go steal that thing,
Mm-hmm.
and Spider-Man goes and drags him out of the wreckage before he explodes.
Mm-hmm.
He goes. They have this short conversation, and Vulture asks, "Why did you do it?" And he
Why
says,
did you save me?
"Because someone once told me that with great power comes great responsibility, and it's my responsibility to keep people safe, even in people like you, or something, anything
Something
like
that. Or say, like, my uncle died from a criminal and I could have stopped him. And I realized that if I don't if I don't save you, then it's my fault that you died. Something like that.
Just well, he doesn't even have to explain his uncle because then that's kind of like giving like Vulture fodder to make fun of him with in the sequel, I guess. But like, I mean, like just you could explain it in the vaguest terms and still have like it would also I feel like boost Vulture's
Yeah.
like
I just think that, like,
his
just that,
thought process.
you know,
in the
that's
following
that's
scene.
what I would have done too.
In
Cause
the following scene, there's like the guy asking, "Hey, do you know where he lives?" And then he covers for him and says, "No, I don't. Like, if I did, he'd be dead by now." Like,
but if they
Vulture
had that
kind of owes it to him.
conversation, then they kind of bonded. So you'll
Exactly.
understand
So
why.
that gives Vulture like additional reason to like because he doesn't think Spider-Man's like a selfish asshole. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
he would know he's not the same kind of guy as Stark.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would have done too. I would have had him go on a bit of a monologue because I am very verbose and that's my writing style. But
I think you can say a lot with as few words as possible.
it doesn't
I mean,
matter
I
what
know
you
I
do.
tend to ramble too, but I think dialogue.
I
Can
think
be
he
very
was just
concise.
said like, I said like, just say like, it's my, I don't know, just say something there that says like, it's a great power, great responsibility, but in other words, and that just have a little bit of a conversation there where they're just sitting in the sand, just sort of like dazed and injured and kind of reeling from everything. Maybe he has a concussion even, and he's like, ugh.
Why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then he could talk about how like what motivates him, and then Vulture could be like, well, all my life I felt like the people with power never had any responsibility and have always been putting me down. You could talk about his motivation some more. They could
Mm-hmm.
get to know each other a little bit more instead of just. I mean, because he's already webbed up and beat up. He's not going to really do anything now. You can probably talk to him.
Yeah, that's what I
Plus,
would have
Vulture
done.
would probably totally be willing to give his side of things. I mean, he's been kind of talking about his motivation the whole movie. And one
And
more
he's
time
been,
wouldn't hurt.
and he doesn't hate Peter. He doesn't hate him. He's just trying to do his thing, and Peter's getting in the way. So once there's no longer that obstacle between them because all of this is blown up, then he can just talk to him.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. That's what I meant when. But great responsibility is easier to say because Twitter has a text limit.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean for it, and I think I feel like we talked about this in the podcast before. This
But I just wanted to clarify it.
general conversation, yeah. Anyway, part of me also feels like it's a little petty to air that whole like argument I had with that one guy. But I feel
Mm-hmm.
like people saw it because he kept the reason I felt like it was worth bringing up is because he kept, instead of like replying in a thread, every time I said something, he would retweet it with his response. So like everyone's
Quote
timelines
retweet. Yeah.
this guy I argued with who has like a very similar channel, and I wanted to collaborate with him at one point,
Mm-hmm.
but then he kind of like yelled at me because I disagreed with him about how source material should be the Bible for adaptations, and
Or maybe
like,
sometimes the source material. Well, here's the thing that
well,
that.
hang on, let me just finish. Is
Mm-hmm.
the reason I thought it was like worth bringing up is because I feel like because it was like a long conversation. We replied back to each other like 20 times at least,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like everyone who follows me on Twitter had this giant like
Thread.
thread. It wasn't even a thread. It was just like more stuff, like him retweeting and then me like replying back to him. Like their
Mm-hmm.
timeline was just cluttered with this conversation, and it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like embarrassing that he kept doing that. I would have rather just have like a normal conversation, but he
Mm-hmm.
kept retweeting everything and making a big deal out of it so that all of his followers saw it too, and just I don't know. I feel like a lot of people saw it, and I just want to give my thoughts on it because like one or two have asked me like, what was up with that? And I was like, it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I maybe it's a little petty to bring it up here,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like it's. I'm not trying to be a dick. And I just feel like it's important to talk about since a lot of people like the podcast is kind of the place where I can answer when people keep asking me questions like this, like what happened to Spider-Man
Yeah.
UE4? What happened with that argument
It's
on
the
Twitter?
most
Like,
like direct link that you can have to talk about stuff. Like if you have questions in the comments, all of this, it's the most like yeah. But like my 2 cents about adaptations is just like it's intellectually dishonest to say that you're just going to adapt it because that's impossible because
unless you're like Sin
whatever
City.
whatever format you're adapting it from has different rules to the way that you have to do things. And you can't like also you can't just preserve everything from the original. And also people who are making movies, who are making cartoons, who are making video games are artists too, and they deserve the chance to add their own stamp to something. I don't
Well, that's
think.
why people like prefer the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies over everything else, is because there's like a very clear creative vision to them. Like they're
Mhm.
directed in a specific way that's unique
And
and
Kevin
different.
Feige with Spider-Man had a creative vision with Spider-Man: Homecoming that it's going to be the comics that he loved, but it's not everything from it. There's changes, like for example, where he got his costume. That's a big one.
Well, yeah, like so my thing with adaptations is I think the characters should be on point because that's the heart of the story.
I
The
just
actual
think
concrete
that.
events are allowed to be different because sometimes the events can be pretty stupid. Like, sometimes in your coming of age story where a bunch of kids fight a supernatural clown,
Mm-hmm.
there's just suddenly a scene where a bunch of underage kids have an orgy in a sewer. You can cut that out. I don't think everyone wants to see that with the cast from Stranger
Stranger
Things.
Things.
No one wants to see the Stranger Things cast have an orgy in a sewer, and if they do, they should be committed to some kind of asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no one wants to see Spider-Man find out that Gwen cheated on him with the Green Goblin. And about that specific point I made is just like there's random stories that throughout Spider-Man's lore that suck. I feel like the point stands that like stuff like One More Day that affects continuity for decades before it and a decade following it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a single one-off story that had a beginning, middle, and end and then just never went anywhere. That continued and it's still continuing. And they won't adapt it because it sucks because source material can suck sometimes, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But his argument was that it was a singular one-off story and they would never adapt it. And I was like, well, I mean, look at how they adapt these stories. It's like they're a hodgepodge of a million different things. Like no single book was the lead inspiration for Homecoming. It's a mix of like 15 at most, or 15 at least different comics just shoved together into one thing. So I was saying, like, yeah, it's all kind of one big story that they're compiling into a 2-hour segment in one weird way, of all of the comics. So it came down to semantics, where it's like, do you consider a comic arc one singular story or part of a larger story? Because I feel like if you just read, like, let's say, the story where Spider-Man gets 6 arms and fights Morbius, if that was the first and only Spider-Man story you ever read, and the only one that existed, would it not be super fucking confusing? Like, there was context to it, and there was things after it that helped explain it. If that was the only thing that existed. So I don't consider comics singular one-off stories. They're more like episodes of a TV series.
I don't know. I just think that, like, with adaptations, things are going to change. You have to accept that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like, as long the best that you can hope for is that they try to maintain the spirit or the tone or of the original, or maybe some of the characters, like, but they're gonna add things, they're gonna remove things, they're gonna truncate things, they're gonna adapt things, even like Luc Besson. I hate to keep talking about Valerian, but he changed a ton from the comic book. He added so much stuff, and he loves it. So you're gonna have to change things to fit the vision of the adaptation, and it's not gonna be the same as the original, no matter what. Because, like, a comic book, you have a certain format, you have issues, you have a collection, you have a story arc. But with movies, you have a three-act story, and if you're adapting a whole character arc, then you're gonna have to change things, and you're gonna have to adapt things. And plus there's all the actors that are creative people, and they want to do their thing. So there's never going to be a completely 100% accurate adaptation. It's never gonna happen.
Well, unless you're, like, gonna just flat out use the comic as both the script and the storyboard, like they did with Sin City. But those are few and far between, and there's a reason for that, and that's because Sin City did not have 200 issues. It was a very succinct and straightforward and to the point story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you can't adapt Spider-Man panel for panel. That just doesn't work. So that's my argument, and I guess part of it is also that I maybe if this finds a way back to him, I'd like to say, like, I wanted to have a normal conversation about comic book stuff, man. You didn't have to go all crazy and, like, call me a moron or anything. That was a little over the top.
Yeah. So I think that
for the future, Mr. Guy, who I'm talking to, because I'm sure, I mean, word spreads, you'll probably hear this. Could you just please not yell at people right off the bat when they have a different opinion, and instead of saying they're misrepresenting yours, like, hear them out? Like, I'm just asking you, be more fair next time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, let's see, yeah. Right now,
it's been about an hour and 20 minutes, plus the time that we...
I think, yeah, I'm probably gonna have to wrap it up pretty soon, so let's finish it off with the last couple things and talk about it. So yeah, I've been watching Rick and Morty. I finished season 1. It's really dark, really weird, very nihilistic, but it's kind of funny and kind of good.
I'm glad you like it. I figured that would be one of those shows that you just, like, wouldn't be able to get attached to, but I'm glad you're into it so far.
I love Futurama. Futurama is great.
That's the easiest thing to compare it to, just because it's like an animated sci-fi comedy.
But it's kind of like a fusion of Futurama and Archer.
In that the characters are kind of trash shoots, but at the same time, it's some really cool, genuine sci-fi concept.
Really cool, genuine sci-fi comics. Really good writing. It doesn't have as much like social satire as like a Matt Groening stuff typically does. But I'm okay with that. Although I will say that one thing that I think that makes it more tolerable than Archer is that the characters are terrible people, but they're not always terrible people. They have moments of humanity. They have flashes where they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm human. Maybe I should go and help this guy or something." And they like Morty is cynical, but he's not like the complete absence of humanity that is Archer or Sterling Archer or whatever.
Yeah, like Archer makes it a giant point to just be consistently fucked up, and like his backstory after a while stops being able to excuse for it.
Mm-hmm. He's just a terrible person, but like these.
But I like Archer. I've watched all of that show multiple times.
I can't watch Archer because the characters are just completely unlikable. All of them.
I think that's part of the charm, is that you're supposed to like get a kick out of watching these like really shitty, but they're very very distinct characters though. Well, I mean, not all of them are terrible. I mean, Krieger is eccentric, but not necessarily a bad guy. And while Cyril does make mistakes, he's also like not a jerk. It's really just Archer now that I think about it. Well, also Pam and his mom and Cheryl. Those are the worst characters. Everyone else, for the most part, their actions are justifiable or, not entirely evil. I think you just need to watch more of it and give some of the other characters a chance, because it's kind of... the base premise is, what if James Bond was a jerk?
Well,
and then maybe like also the secretary and the PR person are a jerk.
I don't know, but I Rick and Morty's okay. I can enjoy it. Like, some episodes are better than others. My favorite is Meeseeks and Destroy, but other episodes are decent too.
I think something that was especially fun about that one is just how serious they played certain moments of it. Like, they took something...
Mr. Meeseeks, look at me!
Or and there's Mr. Jellybean.
Ah!
Right? Like, that wasn't played for laughs at all. They went for it with that shit.
That was so bizarre.
That was, yeah. So I enjoy also the... what's the reverse term? Like, there's levity in a story where you take a very serious moment and then just chuck in something kind of funny to help give it room to breathe, so the audience doesn't want to kill themselves. What's the reverse of that, where it's
I don't know.
funny, dark and sad and fucked up funny? Every fifth
serious moments, I guess you could say.
It's really just the only...
That's what I think makes Rick and Morty work, is that, yeah, it's super nihilistic and depressing and dark, but there are moments where there's some humanity or some levity, so it breaks it up.
It's very evened out with its style of humor.
It breaks it up, because, there's the episode where Rick gets drunk and decides to have a party, but then at the end he's like, okay, let's fix it. He has a moment where the whole episode he's just trying to have fun and not care about anything, but at the end he's like, oh, fine, I care.
Yeah.
That's what makes it work. In my opinion.
I think you're going to really like... Okay, so the opening episode of Season 2 is very impressive in that it was, the hardest one to animate by far, I think. From what I've heard. Because they went so overboard with a silly concept and actually went full on with animating it. So it probably extended production time on that episode by 6 times. And I think you'll really enjoy it, just because it's technically impressive. Like, I can't
So,
believe
yeah.
they took the time to do that. So I'm excited for you to watch more and come talk to me about it, okay?
Other things that I've been watching a lot of Doctor Who lately. I'm reading up for a review that I might want to do. Um, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I've been a, it's funny because everybody became a Doctor Who fan around, like 2010 when Matt Smith took over. But I mean, I hate to say this because it's gonna sound super hipstery, but I remember I bought into the hype around the Matt Smith era, but I actually watched it way before then. Like I remember watching the season 1 finale when it was airing, and I was super scared out because I was a little kid and there were the Daleks. I was like 7 or 8 maybe. Like the salt shakers with lasers and toilet plungers on them.
Yeah, the most serious villain of all time.
They're it's kind of they're like the most like the Doctor's arch nemesis, and they're a metaphor for the Nazis.
The Nazis also reminded me of R2D2.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm working on a Hulk games retrospective as well as live streaming all of Spider-Man PS1. I've actually got that set up, and I'm going to have Josh there to do the commentary with me, because he would know how to do a live stream, and I don't necessarily.
Almost done.
So he'll be in charge of the technical aspects of that, and then we'll try and get it figured out, and I think that'll be fun. And then my hope is that we'll be able to live stream it somewhere that I'll be able to get like an archived video of it and then have that uploaded.
I'm pretty sure
YouTube.
you can stream it on YouTube and just have that go on upload as a video after you're done.
You need to be a YouTube partner to stream on YT though. So
well, you are a YouTube partner.
Am I? Well, yeah.
If you've got AdSense working, you're a YouTube partner.
Oh shit, you're right. Okay. Or I guess that's how it works. I don't know.
If you're not if you don't get your monetization through an MCN or like a multi-channel network, then you're doing it through YouTube and you're a YouTube partner.
Okay. So yeah, I guess I could technically do it. So that'll be fun. We're gonna figure out how to do that soon, sometime this week.
Yep. Yeah. You probably don't want me there because I'm not a Spider-Man person and I'm not a gamer, so I'd just be a wet blanket.
I don't think you'd be a wet blanket. I think it would just be more so that you'd be super bored the whole time,
and then I'd be a wet blanket because I'd spread my boredom onto you.
I'm gonna be honest, that Spider-Man PS4 reaction video, still gets negative comments because it's like. That guy on the right is so unenthusiastic. What a bastard.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up. So, yeah.
How dare he not like the thing that all of us like?
I do not care if I don't like... If I don't care...
I was excited, and Josh was excited. It's okay that you're not excited. It's fine. You don't have to like everything I like.
I don't care if people hate me for doing that. I think that if they react to me that way, then it shows that maybe... That's kind of encouraging because I'm showing them a different perspective that maybe they didn't think of and maybe they don't want to think of.
Okay, justify it however you want, hipster boy. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Will's probably... Okay, I think that's about all we can afford to do because I have to go somewhere and do something.
Rendering and uploading this is going to be a fucking pain in the ass. Good luck.
Let's just sync it again one last time.
1,
2...
3,
4,
5,
6,
7,
8,
9,
10,
11.
Okay. I will see you next week.
All right.
Goodbye.
See ya, kiddos.